Okay, we are live. Um, I just tried to do the sports thing with Stephen. That didn't go well. He was, let's just say, preoccupied. So it is 11/19/91/2023, and we're going to go over some of the true crime cases for the week and um, some other shit. And first, I want to put, actually, hold on a second. I don't want that. But another one of those bizarre weekos. Let's put this up. I will play my intro and do one of these. Freaking love that thing. All right, tonight we're going to go over violent crimes. So if you find any of this stuff disturbing, just hit the mute or do something else. I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. All right, let's play the intro, and I will be right back. Okay, so here we are. Been a bizarre week. We've been covering Hurricane Idalia all week. Pretty bad storm that went through Western Florida, Eastern Florida, Northern Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina. It could have been a lot worse, let's put it that way. But I think other than property damage, flooding, and all that other horse shit, I think everybody pretty much made it through okay. It seemed to strengthen to a category 4, and then the good news is just as it about hit land or pretty close to land anyways, it collapsed its eye wall, which was good news because it, like I said, it could have been a lot worse than it was, even though it was pretty bad. So right away we're gonna go. Let's see here. And we'll go try to we'll do this one.
It was a powerful.
So this is some of the aftermath from Hurricane Idalia. I always want to keep saying Ida because that was another hurricane, but it's Idalia.
hurricane strike that made landfall in Florida just after daybreak this morning and continues to do damage in the Carolinas tonight. The full extent of Idalia's destruction is not yet known, but what is clear is that Mother Nature had her way once again. Our team is spread out across the storm zone, and ABC's Maria Villarreal leads our coverage from hard-hit Cedar Key, Florida. Maria.
Byron, Cedar Key is a tight-knit community that thrives on tourism, but in a matter of hours, that was all swept away. The winds were so powerful, it actually knocked over a gas station canopy. Storm surge washing out the main roadways in and out of the city. But once the water receded, business owners on this waterfront street got their first look at the destruction. The amount of surge evident by all of the debris left behind. And you can take a look right here. This is actually a cement flooring that came from the business that you see right behind me. Owners are saying they believe that this is an absolute loss for them. And even when the power gets turned back on, there is no guarantee that anybody will return because there's no place to stay. So a hit on their economy and their livelihood. Byron?
Maria, thank you. Hundreds of thousands remained without electricity tonight in the wake of Idalia, including in Tallahassee. And that's where we find ABC's Victor Akindo. Victor.
Byron, here in Tallahassee, the race is on to restore power. The biggest concerns for the capital city, wind damage, downed trees, and power outages. Despite being spared the brunt of Idalia, sure enough, we got a combination of all three. Once Idalia cleared the area, our team drove around and quickly spotted crews clearing a tree that fell on a busy highway and took down some power lines. Just beyond them, a lineman in a bucket truck working on restoring power to the nearby streetlights. And look at this outside the governor's mansion. Florida First Lady Casey DeSantis posted this photo. It was a 100-year-old oak tree brought down by Idalia. DeSantis was inside with her children. Nobody was hurt. The good news is we have been tracking the number of customers without power, and they have been dropping by the hour. Byron?
Victor, thank you. Residents in more than 20 Florida counties were ordered to evacuate. And while many heeded those warnings, some made the risky decision to hunker down. Catastrophic storm surge up and down the Florida coast, up to 7 feet. Hurricane Idalia flooding downtown, leaving homes destroyed. Idalia is the first major hurricane to hit this part of Florida's Big Bend. Hurricane Idalia flooding downtown, leaving homes destroyed.
This is something you don't see every day, right? Just septic tanks floating around a neighborhood.
Idalia is the first major hurricane to hit this part of Florida's Big Bend on record.
No!
And now thousands returning home to see whether their homes and businesses survived. Like Shannon and Jordan Keaton, who evacuated and rode out the storm 30 miles inland with family. Longtime residents of Cedar Key, one of the areas hit hardest by the storm.
So there's still no power, no sewer, no water, nothing. My house is fine. There was no issues here. My restaurant is another story. There's quite a bit of damage there. All of my the deck that was around the building is gone. Missing some windows and doors.
They own one of the most popular restaurants on the island, 83 West.
It's terrifying to me.
Check that rainbow out. That's fantastic. I don't think that was added in there. I think that's a natural rainbow right there. That's so cool.
That I wasn't able to see my cameras at the restaurant. I was looking at possibly 8 years of my efforts, gone down the Gulf.
This wasn't their first hurricane. Back in 2016, Hurricane Hermine hit their restaurant, causing $750,000 in damages, according to Jordan.
The problem with being right over the water is it's uninsurable, as are all of the restaurants on Dock Street. They won't be able to get any help from insurance, and they won't be able to get any help from FEMA or anything. It's everybody's on their own.
After Hermine, the Keatons rebuilt their restaurant out of pocket because
I wonder why they can't get any help from FEMA. That doesn't sound right. That's bizarre.
he says they can't get insurance. Now they have to go through it all over again. Jordan hopes to reopen in a few weeks.
We're going to rebuild it. We're going to make it again. Luckily, this area is not prone to a ton of hurricanes. We probably get one every 10 years, but it does seem like it.
He just cursed himself. He literally just cursed himself.
It's a little bit more frequent now.
The ocean's abnormally warm waters averaging 88 degrees, fueling Idalia, increasing its speed as it approached land.
If there's anything the states need right now, I'm ready to mobilize that support of what they need.
While many evacuated, some decided to stay put, including residents in Hudson, Florida, who were stunned by how fast the water came in.
Before I knew it, was over the wall. We're trying to get in the truck, and it's up to barely able to get the doors open. Like, came over the wall. It's just, I can't believe this. I've never seen nothing like it.
I've never seen this before. I mean, we've had a hurricane here, but it's never flooded to this extent.
Just up the coast in Steinhatchee, the Norwood family was split on whether to evacuate or not. Kaylee, who is 9 months pregnant, decided to evacuate to Gainesville with her husband, Kevin.
We evacuated Steinhatchee because I'm 9 months pregnant and have been in and out of labor all day with contractions.
Her brother, Chase, and the rest of the family decided to stay home to watch over their family business, the Sea Hag Marina.
We're more scared for the marina rather than our safety. We do have a lot of damages that happen to everything else, but it could have been a lot worse.
The family has owned the marina for 24 years. Normally, it's a sunny spot filled with fishermen and lodgers coming to enjoy the stunning views.
One of the biggest marinas on the west coast of Florida, and so this is like one of my parents' babies. So when the marina's in danger, it's like almost as if, their child's in danger.
But today, much of it was hit with major storm surge, leaving debris and damage in its wake.
A few hours ago, it looked like a crew.
I mean, that's a lot of water, even for them. It's from the surge, for sure. They were almost a direct hit.
Crazy place. There's wind blowing sideways, tree limbs going sideways. And so it was real. And now it's bright and sunny here.
Despite the damage, the Norwood family focused on their newest member, about to be born.
I think everybody around here is excited. People around in our town, it's like one big family. So everybody knows each other, and everybody knows she's having a baby and having a baby boy.
But tonight, others on the path of the storm from Georgia to South Carolina are still dealing with the remnants of Idalia. As the storm exited Florida and tracked to the north and the east, it continued to cause flooding and also became a tornado threat. ABC's Alex Prechet has more from Charleston, South Carolina. Alex.
Hey, Byron. So the number one thing that Charleston is facing tonight is flooding. Idalia, mixed with those high tides, have flooded roadways. They've flooded parking lots. The National Weather Service has said that water has reached the Charleston Battery and the dunes at Edisto. The other thing that it's facing is wind. We've got down trees, down power lines, and then all throughout the day, they have been dealing with tornadic activity. One tornado so strong that it even picked up a car. Now, more than...
Did you see that?
And then all throughout the day, they have been dealing with tornadic activity. One tornado so strong.
That's a car. Tires underneath of the car. That's a car.
That it even picked up a car. Now, more than 34...
That's fucked up. Oh, that's awful.
1,000 customers are without power. We were actually one of them. The power at our hotel going out for about an hour before the generators kicked back on. That's why the mayor here has urged residents to hunker down, stay safe, not to put any first responders at risk. Byron?
Alex, thank you. There will be much more on the storm overnight and on GMA in the morning.
All right, so that's the end of that. I mean, like I said, that's not something you see every day. Cars flying at you. All right, so let's get back to true crime. This is going to be, if it isn't like big news, it's going to be big news. So we're going to go back 3 days. I started covering this last week, I think, early last week, about the BTK killer. Dennis Rader is back in the news. And, he's probably one of the most prolific serial killers in history, especially here in the United States. I've always hated this guy, like every other serial killer, but um, this guy really bothers me for some reason because he's just uh, he's an asshole. He just is. He's an asshole, and like I said last week, I don't trust a lot of what this guy says, but I do believe that he's responsible for more than um, what he's been charged with and found guilty of. So um, this this case over there in Osage, Oklahoma, almost 90% certain that this guy had something to do with that. But we'll watch this. This was 3 days ago, and this is coming from News Nation, and we'll put this on. Might want to stream it here to help. All right, so this guy here is Dennis Rader, also known as the BTK killer, and bind, torture, and kill. This here is, like I said, probably one of the most notorious guys in the country, and they had some chilling photos come on out, and it's just, I'll let the video speak for itself. But if you have a sensitivity to this shit, just block it out. But this guy here is just a real piece of work.
Actually recreate whether they were hanging upside down or whether they were bound and gagged and blindfolded or whether they were tied up or whether they were half buried. He reenacted all of it.
This guy played the system, right? He did all of this stuff like a one-person wrecking ball. He ruined so many people's lives, families, victims, friends of families, an entire community on edge when he was out there doing his shit. And he played the system. He knew that, even if he got caught, he'd go to prison and pretty much have it made for the rest of his life. So, that's what happens to people like this. They get what they want.
So, big warning. Here is your biggest warning. I gave you one before. You've had plenty of time. Please get the kids out of the room. I'm going to show you Dennis Rader's photos of him
And if you look at this guy, even now, right? Look at the other cop. If you didn't know this was Dennis Rader, the most prolific serial killer in the country, you'd think he was a normal, average, everyday guy, and that's how he portrayed himself, as a normal, everyday, average person living in the United States. And come to find out, he was a really horrible person.
Reenacting his murders. There it is. I can't be any more clear to you about how graphic and upsetting these pictures are. This is one of them, where he half buried himself.
Whoops.
How graphic and upsetting these.
So this is him. Okay. Shovel, arm, body, mask, buried. He buried himself. It's just creepy.
These pictures are. This is one of them, where he half buried himself. This is another one.
The wig. This is just, you can't make this stuff up, man. People are demented, period. This guy is obviously not normal.
where he had a wig and weird makeup and lingerie of his kills. This
Hello,
is another
honeybee.
one bound after.
Hi, honeybee. How are you? Sorry, I didn't see you come in. Yeah, this guy is. I mean, you know, I know there's others. You know, Ted Bundy and all of the other guys, but this guy here just bothers me to no end because he's sitting in a prison, and he's been sitting in a prison for forever, and you know, he should have gotten so much worse than what he got for this.
Extensive torture and buried. This is one. Let's try and get that banner down. Okay, this is one hanging upside down.
I mean, how do you do this to yourself, right? Like, you have to really be just determination to do stuff like this. I mean, look at him. Just an absolute idiot.
This is another one hanging from a tree. Again, these are all Dennis Rader himself.
Yes, happy Labor Day, honeybee. I'm so, like, when Labor Day happens, I'm so, like, not happy. You know, summer is pretty much gone, but happy Labor Day anyways. I do get a day off, so that helps.
In these photos. And there's some interesting clues in these photos. So interesting, in fact, that these old photos of Dennis Rader are now being used to yield clues to solve cold.
Look at this. Sick individual, man. Just a sick, very sick person. What they need to do with this guy here is when he finally does die, they need to do some scientific work on this guy's brains, man.
Old cases that they think might be actually tied to him. So again, I need to reiterate, if you're just tuning in, these are not the victims. These are Dennis Rader reenacting what he did to his victims, using some of their personal effects, their clothing, and some of the...
It's the good news is it's supposed to get a little bit warmer, but then it always does that in September. It's like, haha, you know. It's always good to see you in here, honeybee.
The items that he may have actually had with him when they were killed. There are 3 cases that these photos might actually pertain to, might actually have evidence to link to Dennis Rader. One is Shauna Garber, 22 years old. She was found near Pineville, Missouri, killed December 1990. Okay. She was likely killed in...
So this is what I want to get into tonight. I don't know if I want that one. Hold on a second. All right, I'll try to figure that out behind
in
the scenes.
October, found in December of 1990, found sexually assaulted and restrained. A half dozen different findings were on her. There's another case.
Have a good night, honeybee. Yeah, I don't blame you. It's late. Hope you have a good weekend. I'll probably see you this weekend in somebody's chat. Take care. Have a good weekend.
Case in Oklahoma that's unsolved. The photos may pertain to that case as well. And then there's a third case that's being investigated regarding those photos, and that is a missing woman from Hays, Kansas, who went missing in 1983. These are cases we had not heard of before now. I want to bring in Osage County, Oklahoma Sheriff that's unsolved. The photos may pertain to that case as well. And then there's a third case that's being investigated regarding those photos, and that is a missing woman from Hays, Kansas, who went missing in 1983. These are cases we had not heard of before now. I want to bring in Osage County, Oklahoma Sheriff Eddie Verdon, who's been working on the dig that we brought to you last week that yielded a lot of evidence. Sheriff, I am so fascinated by this new aspect of this investigation. Look, it's new to us. I know it's not new to you, but can you give me a bit of an indication of what is in these photos that is informative to you while looking at these cold cases?
Yes. Well, of course, when we started digging through the files, we located those Polaroids that he had taken himself, and there was a series of 9 photos that he took on one of his convicted cases out of Wichita, and in the series of 9.
I do think that some of these authorities, especially these guys here in Oklahoma, have been doing a lot of these things on purpose over the last 5 to 10 years or so, because they got to tread lightly with this guy. Like I said last week, and like I've been saying since day one with this guy here, you got to be careful with him because he's very intelligent, fortunately, and he plays with the system a little bit. He plays with authorities, and he teases people. I think lately with the Lisk killer, he's kind of wanted to resurface because nobody's paying attention to him. So you got to, it's like a catch-22 with him. You can believe what he says, you can't believe what he says. So you need to really be careful with these investigations and go by step, process by process to get these cases solved. And it's not as simple as just, running DNA and finding the DNA and charging him with these. You got to be very careful with that stuff.
Is written that he is wearing articles from 3 different projects, one of them of which was the Davis murder there in Wichita. And then he named 2 other projects that some of that clothing was from. And as we went further into that, then we developed or found or located 9 more photographs that were dated shortly after another project that he had marked in October, which he called Mossy Lake, which we believe is possibly related to the Garber case.
And I just want to be clear for our viewers who didn't see our programs last week, it's become clear that Dennis Rader uses the word project for his murders. And he uses codes, which we'll get into a little bit later, for confirmed kills and projects in his writings.
It's almost like, people set aside different things they want to do for the week, for the year, things that they, plan to get accomplished. I think that's what he means by project, instead of saying, hey, I think I'm going to paint the fence this week, or I think I'm going to remodel the garage or whatever. This guy's projects meant, I'm going to go out and find this specific type of person to fulfill my innermost desire, fantasy. And that's pretty psychotic. He has absolutely no remorse for any of these victims whatsoever. They were just basically projects to him.
But when you talk about a project, I know that there was something called Project Dogside. I think that was Doris Davis, killed in January of 1991. Did you believe that there were items of clothing depicted in the reenactment pictures of Doris Davis and her murder?
Again, I can't say there were kills, but he noted specifically 3 projects, one of them being what he called Dogside, and then another one he called Project Prairie, and another one I believe was Project Cat. So he noted that he used those articles in those photographs. So then when we found a series of 9 more that were dated within days of what they believe Garber or when Garber was killed.
I mean, you just cannot convince me, especially with the forethought and the knowledge that we have of this guy now, between the years of 1974 and 2004, I think, that this guy is only responsible for 10 unalivings. I don't buy it. I probably never will buy it, based on, like I said, the evidence we have from this guy and how brutal this guy was and how methodical he was. It's going to take a lot to convince me that he's not responsible for more victims, period. I've felt that way back since the 1990s about this guy.
We started looking at the items that he was wearing in that and matched those items back to a special map that he mailed to law enforcement back at the time, where he marked it as 160 and then marked a spot on that map for a location for the victim's body to be placed in the water.
So I'm going to go here. So I did this last week, but I don't know what's going on with my computer right now. Okay, so I believe this is whoops. So I believe this right here is Cynthia Kinney, and then this is Shauna Beth Garber here. Cynthia Kinney was reported missing from a laundromat in Osage, Oklahoma, and that's this guy that's talking on this News Nation is the sheriff that's in charge of that case. And then this on the right is Shauna Beth Garber. And we'll go over this in a couple minutes, but I just wanted to show the victims here. I could probably get better pictures than that, but there you go.
And in those photographs, we had been looking at another unsolved case in Oklahoma, and that victim was missing 4 different items that they were last seen with. One of them was a red blanket, one was a black blouse, and in those photographs, there's a red blanket that appears in one of those pictures and a black blouse. And then in a couple of the evidence photos.
Because I watched his, I'm going to probably try to see if I can play that without getting struck again. He had his day in court where he
photographs taken when they
described to the court exactly how he did these things. And I always found it suspicious that he kept fucking up in what he was saying when they asked him about specific ways and specific things that he did. And it's almost like he was catching himself by saying things about other crimes that he committed, and he quickly caught himself and got back to the question that they were asking him about that specific crime that they were asking him about. And if you watch the whole thing play out in that courtroom, you'll see what I'm saying.
served a warrant 2005. There's a blue suitcase that matches a description of the one that victim was last seen with, and then also a purse that matches a description. And again, those are just descriptions in the original report from 1990. But if you go to the timeline that he had, or the notebook where he had those, he has a note in there for an Oklahoma case. He's got an Oklahoma kidnapping. And then for the time period when the Oklahoma victim was last.
And this is a grown man right here, right? And I understand some people have strange desires, strange needs, strange wants, but this is a grown man here, right?
Seen, he's got a notation of a project. And then when you find, 4 items that match the description in that report, you've got to really look deeper into that.
So to be clear, the Hays, Kansas victim, is it true you found information that he was watching a location where she worked and that he purchased a mask near where she worked?
Yes, in some of his other notations, he makes mention of a location that she had worked at from the information we received, and then other indications of him digging a grave along the river somewhere in that area. So again, we can only say what we found and what it leads us to believe, and the investigation is going to continue.
Is there some kind of sensitivity behind not releasing the names of the Hays, Kansas victim and the Oklahoma victim?
Absolutely. Those cases are not our jurisdiction and not our cases. So, I'll leave that up to the agencies that are working those cases. We've provided those agencies the information that we feel pertains to their cases, and of course are willing to help any way at any request. But again, that's going to be their decision, on where they go and what they do with the investigation. We're just providing them the information that we put together through our investigation that we feel like could relate to theirs.
Sheriff, let me ask you, we talked last week about the dig at Dennis Rader's former home and what it yielded, the binding devices. You showed us the pantyhose with the knots in them that he would have used as a ligature. You mentioned there was jewelry and hobby.
So according to Dennis Rader's daughter, and I saw a interview with her from a really, really good YouTuber. And she was talking about the dig and how that happened. So if I can remember the name of the guy that hosts that, Surviving the Survivor, I think, maybe, not sure. He always has Dr. Ann Burgess on there too. But she was talking about how when they sold the property, when they left the property, they were digging back there to put in new footings or sidewalks or something, and they dug those items up and kind of just left them there. That's how they found them.
Items.
I mean, that's what I took from her what she was saying.
And other things like perhaps chains, other binding devices. Are you further along today than when we spoke last week in finding evidentiary value from those from those pieces of evidence that link to Dennis Rader?
Well, we
Because she was saying they got a donation from somewhere that they don't know in California for like $50,000 or so to buy that house and demolish it way back. So that house had been leveled, and they put in this kind of walkway here. And when they were digging to do that, that's when they found those items.
we're looking into several different things, but as far as finding the exact owner of those items, of course, you know, I don't know if we'll ever get the answer to that. Dennis is the only one that truly knows where he got those items and what they came from. But what we're trying to do is find cases where similar items were possibly reported belonging to the victim or something related to the victim or that case that could have been. And then, of course, hoping that you know, maybe some of these items might yield some DNA or something. And again, you know, the length of time they were in the ground, I can't tell you whether it's going to retain anything or not, but we're certainly going to look at it very close. Again, we're also trying to get a list of the items that were collected in the original search warrant back in 2005 to see if any DNA testing was done on them. And if not, trying to, you know, move forward to get DNA testing on any of the bindings or clothing or anything that was collected at that time that hasn't been swabbed and hadn't checked to see if it matches.
I mean, people forget this is all of this stuff happened basically in Wichita, Kansas, you know, outside surrounding areas and stuff. And this guy traveled a lot. So when you're talking about some of the other, you know, criminals and serial killers, this was in a pretty, you know, sterile environment, you know, like Wichita, Kansas. You know, we've seen great movies about Kansas. Something tells me we're not in Kansas anymore, you know. So it wasn't like this is in the middle of a city or middle of a very like stuff like this happens all the time. This was the boonies, pretty much.
Just any of these other victims that we're looking at.
But it caused a massive panic. Nobody felt safe down there.
Sheriff Verdon, I hope that you find resolution on these cold cases for these families and also for your officers. You've been working a long time on it. Stay in touch with us, please. We're going to stay on the story.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Sheriff Eddie Verdon joining us.
Hey, thank you for watching.
All right, so what I want to do is go to this victim here. We're going to go to this here from Law and Crime here. So as I said, this is two other victims that they're trying to connect to Dennis Rader. And I'm not saying he's responsible for these, but not saying he isn't either. So the headline is how major clues in the BTK serial killer's decades-old journals made him a prime suspect in 2 more murders. Because apparently they had these journals for a long period of time. And like I said, you got to be really careful in some of the stuff here because you don't want to let too much information out. Dennis Rader knows what he did, but it's not like he's going to tell anybody, especially if he doesn't want to, or if it's no benefit to him. I mean, he's all about himself. He's all about control, and to him, this is a game, pretty much. It's attention. He's an attention getter at the same time. So Dennis Lynn Rader, divine torture, kill, serial murderer, better known as BTK, will have to wait until February 26th, 2180 to be released from Kansas. And by that time, he'll be rotting, being eaten by ants, hopefully. So So he's been identified as the prime suspect in 2 more murders. The sadistic self-nicknamed 70, so he's the one that came up with that name. A lot of people don't realize that. Wichita Killer, a regional ADT alarm installer. So he was going around alarm installing. So he was getting around. Church council president and Cub Scout leader, known for evading capture for decades, even as he taunted law enforcement and terrorized the public with menacing letters. And he was captured back in 2005. I remember that day well. He sent a floppy disk to police that led cops right to him. Pretty sure it wasn't that easy, but it was definitely the big break in the case. Radar is currently serving 10 life sentences. Not 1, not 2, not 3, but 10 life sentences, and he might be serving more. If he is found guilty of these 2, I just hope they just do away with him. So he's responsible for the murders of the Otero family in 1974, the murder of Catherine Bright, and the attack on her surviving brother, Kevin Bright. One of these victims almost made it. And reading up on this again last night while working, one of the victims almost made it. She fought like hell. She literally fought this guy, and he even said it. He actually looked really upset about how hard she fought. In 1977, the murders of Shirley Vian and Nancy Joe Fox. The 1985 and 1986 murders of Marina Hedge and Vicky Regeley. And the 1991 murder of Dolores Davis. So between 1974 and 2004, this guy was, nobody had any clue who he was, who was doing this. They just didn't. Now Rader's own decades-old journal writings have to come back to haunt him in long unsolved Oklahoma and Missouri murders, both of which occurred within the time period of 1974 to 1991. So I want to go down to Shauna Beth Gardner. Okay. So this is one of the victims here that they're trying to link him to. So Polaroid photos already in the original BTK journal file show a red blanket. So those photos that we were just looking at showed a red blanket that appeared to belong to Shauna Beth Garber, a 22-year-old woman murdered in 1990 and known only as Grace Doe, until DNA technology advancements led investigators to her half-sister in 2021. So they did, I think they did genealogical testing on the DNA. Because I don't think, correct me if I'm wrong, because I might be, but I don't think he actually sexually assaulted any of the previous victims. I could be wrong. So there she is as a child, and Grace Doe shot. I think this is a composite sketch here of what she would have looked like. So Shauna Garber is also known as Grace Doe. Remains were found hogtied and dumped behind a rural farmhouse on Oscar Talley Road in McDonald County, Missouri, back in December of 1990. I wonder if I can find that. I hate my computer. Tally. Can't spell tonight, sorry. So this is, let's stop this for a second. So there's two of them. It starts out here. And then it goes this way. Could be anywhere in here. But as you can see, it's pretty rural, so it's, you know. All right, let's go back to this. I should have my music on, but an autopsy revealed she had been raped and strangled about 2 months before her body was found. About 2 months, so she was found 2 months after. In 2020, so this is in 1990. In 2020, the McDonald County, Missouri Sheriff's Office partnered with the Othram Forensic Lab to identify Grace Doe's remains. After partnering with Othram, in 2020, the McDonald County Sheriff's Office submitted the woman's skeletal remains to the lab, and they extracted DNA from the remains and built a profile they could use to identify her distant relatives. So I think they got it off of this half-sister who did a genealogy tree. In January of 2021, McDonald County Sheriff's Office was notified by Othram that there were candidate relatives identified for Grace. Pretty sure they jumped up and down when they heard that. The sheriff's office went down to the list of potential relatives and contacted Danielle Pixler, who was on the genealogical tree developed by Osram. So she said her half-sister, Shauna Garber, had been in foster care in Garnett, Kansas, and went back into state care. So she was in foster care and then went back into state care. So she had a rough life. Sad. Danielle did not know what happened with Garber after she left foster care. After Garber left foster care, Danielle told the sheriff's office she had been looking for her for over 28 years. That just sucks. The sheriff's office said it will try to trace Shauna's movements before her death to determine what happened to her. So that's that right up. That's got to suck. She had a tough life. That's just not, it's just horrible how people can be treated and shit. All right, let me throw some music on here since we're going to be here for a couple of minutes. So it could be, So the half-sister said that Shauna had been in foster care in Garnett, Kansas, 2 hours away from Park City, and then she never heard from Garber again after she left. Shauna Garber was hogtied, raped, and strangled to death. Her remains were found in December 1990, left behind a rural Lanigan farmhouse in McDonald County, Missouri, 2 months after she was killed. Under Sheriff Upton told Law and Crime that his office uncovered a lot of evidence, and now they are working in collaboration with McDonald County to do our best to resolve the case, as well as the Kinney case. So, and this was done April 25th, 2023. So this was about a week ago. So there she is. I mean, I think this is a composite of what she would have looked like. Okay, so we're gonna go here. All right, so let's go here. Stop this screen here. Stop this. And we'll go right. We're going to do this one right. Right here.
On paper, Dennis Rader killed 10 people because that's what he cops to. But police think there could be at least 5 more. His daughter thinks there could be hundreds. The 5 that could be linked to Dennis Rader were actually posted by his...
Yeah, I don't think there's hundreds. But I think there's definitely about a good 5, 6, maybe even 10 more. But even I could be wrong. But I mean, if I was to take an educated guess or a non-educated guess, I'd say at least 5 to 10.
His daughter, Carrie Rawson. Let me just name the victims. The first one is Cynthia Cindy Kinney from Pawhuska, Oklahoma. She disappeared in 1976, never seen again. Then there's Mary Lang from Hayes, Kansas, disappeared in 1983. Shauna Garber from McDonald County, Missouri, disappeared in 1990.
Attributed to dad.
And then two other unnamed cases. One is sort of an unsolved murder in Kansas that Dennis Rader referred to as Project Bell, and an unsolved violent crime known as Oklahoma Case Number 2. Those are the 5 that, investigators are sort of looking into as possibilities. But that first one that I named, Cynthia Kinney, 16-year-old cheerleader, 1976, she leaves her parents' laundromat. She's never seen again. And Dennis Rader writes all about bad.
When I first started looking into BTK, I remember coming across this name years ago. And I don't know, I might be wrong with that, but I thought I remembered hearing that name come up 5, 6, 7 years ago.
Wash Day, one of his projects. He used to call murders projects. His journal, his book manuscript that they found all talk about Bad Wash Day. And so investigators really think it could be.
I will be right back. I'm going to let this play, but I'll be right back.
That he's talking about Cindy Kinney. And when they dug at his house twice, they found ligatures and chains. They found trinkets and hobby items. And they think they might be connected to Cindy Kinney. So finding resolution on Cindy Kinney's murder after almost half a century would be massive. Not only to the law enforcement who've been working on this case for so long, but family members and friends. Friends in particular, like Tawana Bollinger, close friend of Cindy Kinney, spent years searching for her. And she is live with me here tonight. Tawana, thank you for being here. I wanted to ask you about these recent developments and the very real possibility that the sheriffs think they may actually be able to connect Dennis Rader to your friend's disappearance.
Well, I'll tell you what, I was excited when I found out about it. In the beginning, I didn't know what to think about it because, Cindy's not the first unsolved murder in Pawhuska. So, I really just didn't know. But the more evidence I hear, the more I'm almost convinced he is.
You spent years driving around Pawhuska and the surrounding communities. Walk me through those decades that you kept looking for her.
We drove back roads. We drove out to oil rigs. We drove pastures. We walked that lake. I mean, year after year after year, just hoping to find something. And we just never did.
Does she have any family still alive, aware of these new developments?
Yes, her mom and dad are still alive. We're just not wanting to disturb them right now. And she's got cousins over in Pawhuska.
So presumably
I'm sure they're aware of it over there, but
that's what I was going to say. Presumably the sheriffs are, treating them with kid gloves as they continue this work and hopefully finding resolution for this family. Again, it's been almost
I do want to check one thing. So that is that is kind of strange because that is one thing that I found odd about him is none of the victims had been sexually assaulted. So now I'm not saying that he couldn't have changed up his MO or anything, but this victim here was back in 1976, I think.
Half century that they have not seen her. Can you tell me about the last time you saw Cindy?
Do you know, I've been asked this question more than once, and it's been a lot of years, but I've thought and thought and thought about it, and I just cannot pinpoint the last time I seen her. The last time I spent a significant amount of time with her was during cheerleading camp that summer. But that wasn't the very last time I seen her, I'm sure. You know, Pasca's so small, we pass each other every day.
Sure. And she was 16 and a cheerleader when she disappeared from the laundromat. Can I ask you, Tawana, what justice and closure would feel like after this much time, knowing that Dennis Rader's already serving 10 life sentences?
You know, if we could just find out the truth to get some.
Okay, so let's go to this other victim here. And we'll throw the music back on. Whoops. That's good. Okay, so that's Cynthia Kinney right there. That doesn't look like a color photo there, so I don't know what's going on with my computer tonight, but it's not good. Okay, so this is Cynthia Kinney here. When 16-year-old cheerleader Cynthia Dawn Kinney vanished from a laundromat in Pawhuska, Oklahoma, without a trace on June 23rd, 1976. Osage County authorities put out a reward for her assistance in finding the 5'1", 100-pound brunette who went by Cindy. I probably burned that name. Pawhuska. I don't know why this is doing this to me. Whoops. So that's Pawhuska right there. right outside of Tulsa, northwest of Tulsa. And there's Wichita, Kansas right there. So 100 miles or so, probably. See how good I am. Two hours and 4 minutes. So 2 hours. So I was off. So I don't know if that's far. Does that seem far to anybody? I'm not sure. But he did do a lot of driving. He eyeball test is not good. All right, let's go back to the interview. Actually, okay, so here's the original reward poster here. Cynthia Kennedy was last seen at the Osage Laundry, Pawhuska, Oklahoma, June 23rd. So summertime, basically 1976. Date of birth 1/17/60, 5 feet 1 inches, approximately 100 pounds, brown eyes, brown hair. I think this is an old. To this day, Kennedy's remains have not been found, but the Osage County Sheriff's Office, led by Sheriff Eddie Verdon, announced a major development on Wednesday directly linking radar to the case. So they haven't found her body. So Verdon said his investigators searched Radar's former Park City home and recovered items of interest like personal effects, which will undergo a thorough examination to determine their potential relevance to ongoing investigations in Oklahoma and Missouri. At this stage, Dennis Rader is considered a prime suspect. So not just a suspect, but a prime suspect in these unsolved cases, including the Cynthia Dawn Kinney case from Pawhuska, the sheriff's office said. So basically what they're doing is going by this entry that this guy made in his journals that they've held on to for a long period of time. On Thursday, the sheriff's office revealed that an entry in Rader's journal from 1976, so way back bicentennial year, written the year Kinney disappeared, made reference to PJ Bad Wash Day, project standing for project, and in a brunette he was stalking. The brunette was the target. I would watch the nearby laundromat for possible victim. See C9, Chapter 9 of his unpublished book on the murders, the entry said. Laundromat were a good place to watch victim and dream. So I believe that the laundromat that she was at was a relative's laundromat. So she must have been there a lot. So here's the entry here. So again, it's all about the projects with this guy. It's pretty terrible, you know, when you think about it. Some unsuspecting victim is basically being stalked, and they don't even know it. It's just awfully sad.
Closure for her family. I really highly doubt if we'll ever find her body. It's been too many years.
It'd be something else, though, right? If you could find that as well, the connection to Raider and the location, that would be remarkable. I hope we can stay in touch, Tuan. I really appreciate you being on and sharing your thoughts about Cindy with us, because she seemed like a really sweet 16-year-old cheerleader.
She never had an enemy, and everybody loved her. And that's why this was such a big shock to everybody, because she was just so well loved. And I really appreciate you having me on tonight.
Well, Tawana Bollinger, we're thankful that you did this. Thank you in her honor as well. Much appreciated.
Yeah.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.
Let's begin here. BTK, one of the most notorious serial killers in the history of our country. A sick.
So I just transformed into this segment here. I think I played some of this last week, but we'll stick here for a couple minutes.
Individual. His name is Dennis Rader, and he's been behind bars for a while now. It's been a while, right? There he is, locked up, admitted everything in court, cameras in the courtroom. We saw it all happen. But now there's an investigation into an unsolved case, actually a couple of them, but one of them in Osage County, and they were digging up evidence in this case. This is from Tuesday, and this is evidence that we believe, and investigators believe, are going to link BTK to the murder of a 16-year-old cheerleader. Here's BTK's daughter, Kerri Rawson, speaking with our own Matt Johnson about it.
The latest right now is that there is a 1976 cold case with Cynthia Kinney out of Osage County, Oklahoma. She was a missing person. She went missing from a laundromat in Pawhuska, and no one knows what happened to her. And so starting in around January of this year, my dad was contacting other outlets and letting them know that he was being questioned on Cynthia Kinney. And then in the end of May or early June, my dad contacted outlets again and told them he was being investigated on Shauna Garber, who was a woman that was found murdered in the fall of '90 in just in the southwest corner of Missouri near Joplin. And so that one is being looked at by investigators in McDonald County.
This is a huge development. I'd like to bring a special guest, the man leading up this investigation, the Osage County Sheriff who's working that Cynthia Kinney case. Sheriff Eddie Verdon is with us. Sheriff, great to see you tonight. Thanks so much for joining us.
You bet.
Let's put this together. So how does this investigation sort of start gaining momentum? What was it that led you to start to try to put these pieces together?
Well, of course, back at the time of her disappearance, nobody knew who BTK was, and he was not well known at that time. In fact, as you know, it was 2005 before they actually got him identified and arrested. But in December, I started looking for information off a television show about BTK. Through that, I learned that he was a ADT installer. I learned that a lot of his crimes were Monday through Friday, 8 in the morning to noon time range. And this case, the victim disappeared in the middle of the week, mid-morning, and there was a bank being constructed across the street at the time, which would have been about the time for the pre-wiring to be done for the alarm system for that bank. So we just initially started off looking to see if there was any possibility that ADT could have installed that bank alarm and if he could have been in the area.
This is amazing. So you're watching some sort of documentary about this killer. You hear a couple little things, and did it hit you like that, or did you have to? Well,
it's absolutely amazing, right? These guys never stop thinking about these things. So I don't know how they can do that.
Wait a minute. How was that moment? Because this is amazing to me.
Well, you know, I had looked at this case years ago, probably in 2006 or 7. I had went through it looking for any new leads, anything like that. Didn't really find anywhere to go with the investigation at that point. So I knew a lot of background on it, and as I was watching, I seen some similarities or some things that raised suspicion. So again, ADT was one of those, and he was a regional installer. Also, another connection, we'd gotten another tip on this case back in probably.
So he was an ADT installer. So let's expert installation and repairs. Our highly trained certified technicians stay at the forefront of security technology to ensure your system works correctly. Expert installation and repairs. So just think, this guy here was installing security devices in people's homes, right? Unbelievable. Just it's like the perfect job for somebody like this.
2012 of someone that had located or seen something years ago up by an old Boy Scout camp on the north end of the county. And looking into Dennis, he was a Boy Scout himself until he was, I think, around 17. Their scout camp was not too far north, right on the Kansas-Oklahoma border. So there was a lot of things that needed to be looked at. Of course, we went to the bank, couldn't confirm who the original security company was, but by research, ADT had.
I mean, the only good news from that is they must have, you would hope that they retrieved all of his whereabouts from his roots from those time frames in those years. I mean, even though they didn't have computers, they must have had, job assignments, that's the word I'm looking for, job logs, in and outs, time clocks, mileage. You would think that they would have logged that stuff when they were investigating this guy here.
Approximately 80% of the commercial alarms in the United States at the time. So, first we reached out to the bank to see if we could find out if ADT had any involvement with that bank security system or alarm system, and there was no records or anything we could locate. So when we couldn't get any of that information, we decided to reach out to Wichita to see if there was any possibility that we could look at their case files, in the hopes that we could find some type of ADT records. And Of course, we learned that there was no ADT records
Oh shit.
located from ADT back at that time. So we decided to just basically go to a background interview with Dennis to see if he would talk to us and just see if there was any connection to our area or anything we could learn from a background type interview.
And how did that interview go? Was he cooperative? Did you get the sense that he was being truthful? And what did you take away from that interview?
Well, you know, at the beginning, he agreed to talk to us. There was actually 2 of my investigators that were there and a DOC investigator that sat in the room. And, you know, he started off with, he only committed the 10 that he confessed to, and there was no others, but he would be willing to cooperate and give any help he could, you know, towards any case. We had made it clear that we weren't going to go into our case at all, give no.
See, this guy talks really weird. He talks out of the side of his mouth. It's just really weird, almost like he's got some sort of a tick, you know.
Information.
He doesn't talk, you know, most people will talk forward out of the front part of the mouth. He kind of
basically all we told him is we were looking into an old case from 76, and what we wanted was just information about him. So he basically said, where would you want to start? And I said, your first memory. And we took off from age 3 to where he was now, including going through 9 out of his 10 murders and the different jobs that he had throughout his life, and basically his entire story. And as he was breaking down for us that story, he, working for ADT, put himself from Ark City, Kansas, Cedarville, Coffeyville, Cherryville, Independence, all across the Oklahoma-Kansas border. And of course, he told us that was when he had his opportunities to be himself, have his hotel parties, do prowling, breaking and entering, different things, being away from home. That was something that he did. You know, in addition to that, he really talked about the Flint Hills, Otter Creek, different things in our area that are pretty significant and had a lot of knowledge about that.
How about?
Okay, so I'm going to stop this here. We're going to go to something a little bit more recent because that was done 7 days ago. So I want to go to this one here. This is this was done an hour ago. This is again
These
from News
investigators-
Nation. This is his daughter's take on the photos. Let's do this.
Who are looking at these 5 different cold cases are looking at details in a lot of these pictures. So big warning again, when I show you some of these pictures, the details within the pictures matter because they may actually lead to the resolution of 5 cold cases for 5 families out there. What's also fascinating about the pictures is what Dennis Rader's daughter sees that we don't see. She sees her grandparents' basement, and she sees items of interest that she recognizes, blankets that she slept on while camping. She sees places where her family went to church. She recognizes a lot of things. She even recognizes items that belong to her father that he's wearing, that she herself would do in the laundry for him. So it's difficult. Well, I've got the graphic warning up there long enough. I want to show you some of those pictures again, because there were these pictures not only of him reenacting himself.
This is just sick. I mean, this is this right here is a disturbed individual right here.
Buried like he buried his victims, made up with wigs and makeup bound in chairs, lying like this out in the woods somewhere. It's discussed by many of the experts and detectives that he was on scouting trips when he did these things. hoisting himself up in trees like he did to his victims. And then these party pictures in motel rooms. This one in particular, Carrie Rawson is going to discuss with us in a moment because there's a lot in there that she recognizes. That's her grandparents' basement. So what's critical, though, is the details that we now know from pictures we didn't really think about, almost 20 years ago. I want to bring in Carrie Rawson right now. She's live to discuss these. Carrie, you've seen a
programming note. I was gonna do 2 lives tonight. I don't know if I'm gonna do that. I've been on here a lot this week. I don't think anybody really cares, but I might not. I'm not sure. But just a programming note for me, anyways.
a lot more of these pictures than we have. You've seen a lot.
Okay, so if anybody's been living under a rock, this is Dennis Rader's daughter here, and she's been all over the place lately on almost every single important YouTube creator has had her on. She's a very intelligent person, I think. And if anybody knows this guy more than her, I don't think there is somebody. So this is her father they're talking about. So
a lot of pictures that the public has never seen. What haven't we seen? Can you describe for me what you've seen that we haven't?
Good evening, Ashley. This is probably only about a handful of pictures. When I flew into Osage, they started showing me all of my dad's records. There's probably about 200 bondage photos that my dad's taken. It's really important first to note that they're taken by my father. They're Polaroids. He uses a cord. He came up with a system. He carried this stuff around. He did these at hotels. He did these in churches that he broke into. He did them in our church. He did them in my home when we were gone. He actually did one in my college dorm room when I was out shopping with my mom in August of '98. You can match what he's doing with his journals. He's digging. So what the public is not seeing is evidence right now in these cases, because he's reenacting actual crime scenes, and we're trying to match up now missing persons and murdered with possibly these photos. And he's wearing.
So what they're trying to do is they're trying to match up some of the clothing this guy's wearing in all of these different photos, some of the fabrics, some of the rope maybe, to these other cases.
And he's wearing victims' clothing in some of these, and you can match them with timeline. And so we're seeing, like in Garber's case, she, we believe, was murdered or at least dumped on Halloween in 1990. A few days later, he goes and does a big bondage in a church in West Wichita. And we believe, based on his bondage choices in that photo, that he's a series too, where he's reenacting several things that happened to a victim, and he's wearing bindings that match Garber, and then there's a blanket that's missing from Garber, and we think it was under Dad on that bondage, and he literally had that blanket in our house, and then he took it camping, and he literally covered me with that blanket when I was cold.
It's hard to even believe that you're having to relive this, and I think public should know that they should be thankful that you're doing this with law enforcement to help them and inform them of what you know and give the information that you know. Let me go through some of the photos specifically. I want to start with the first one. I'll ask our control room if they can just put up the photo that's called the sand photo, because I want to ask you about what you know regarding the location of this photo.
Well, first I know that shovel, that was our camping shovel that we used like for fires. I believe that's out at Lake Cheney. He would take us camping on a sandbar. He didn't like to camp around people, and I didn't understand why, because as a little girl, you want the public restroom and stuff. My mom didn't ever camp, so it was me and my older brother, and we would go to bed, and he would do this bondage, and that's a sandbar out at Cheney, I'm sure. Now, one of the questions about that one is we don't have any confirmed cases of my father burying anybody. Why is he reenacting a burial? It's very concerning, because we have some women that we think have been buried. Project Prairie, Hayes, 1983, we're looking at her as a burial. He talked.
I mean, that's a good point. And, that could be one of the most unproven thing that these people sometimes change their MOs and change their ways of doing things. And, you know, some crimes they may be more proud of than other ones. You know, it's, and with him, like I said, it's really difficult because you never know if he's saying what he did or his actual, if he's actually telling the truth or not. You know, but we have pictures here, so these are conclusive, right? Because they're pictures, and if he's wearing victim's clothing or stuff like that, then now you can kind of put two and two together.
Talks about burials with Dr. Ramsland. He even talks about digging a grave in 1990 when he was out in Hayes on the census. Yet he says that he dug a whole grave, but then he had to call my mom, like, to check in. Like, come on, like, you dig a grave and then you don't put somebody in there. So we have to go figure all of these things out now.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your television.
Okay, so what I wanted to do is let's go back here. I don't know why I just did that. Trying to find the whoops. Be nice if everybody else could see it. All right, so so I think this is the one, but I could be wrong. So this is part of his sentencing and confessions in the courtroom, and this is what he was talking about with the Otero family.
I think it's 1834. Edgemore.
All right. Can you tell me approximately what time of day you were?
Somewhere between 7 and 7:30.
This particular location, did you know these people?
No, that's no, that was part of my, I guess my what's called fantasy. These people were selected.
All right. So you were engaged in some kind of fantasy during this period of time?
Yes, sir.
All right. Now, when you use the term fantasy.
See, watch that question right there, right? Like he really, I mean, he's really excited about talking about this, right? He quick comeback, right? Like
during this period of time?
Yes, sir.
All right. Now, when you use the term fantasy, is this something you were doing for your personal pleasure?
Sexual fantasy, sir.
I see. So you went to this residence, and what occurred then?
Well, I had did some thinking on what I was going to do to either Mrs. Otero or Josephine, and basically broke into the house, or didn't break into the house, but when they came out of the house, I came in and confronted the family, and then we went from there.
Had you
See that right there? Like when he says broke into the house, well, I didn't break into the house.
But when they came out of the house, I came in and confronted either Mrs. Otero or Josephine, and basically broke into the house, or didn't break into the house, but when they came out of the house, I came in and confronted.
So I broke into the house. Well, didn't break into the house. So what I'm saying is he may be confusing some of these crimes with other crimes that he did, and catching himself by saying I broke into the house when he was, at another crime scene at some point. And now he's saying, well, it's not this one, it's that one. Okay, so this is what I caught last night while watching this.
Basically broke into the house, or didn't break into the house, but when they came out of the house, I came in and confronted the family.
So you either broke into the house or you didn't break into the house. And why would he say he broke into the house when he knows damn well that he didn't break into the house?
And we went from there.
All right. Had you planned this beforehand?
To some degree, yes. After I got in the house, I lost control of it, but it was, in the back of my mind, I had some ideas what I was going to do, but I basically panicked that first day. So
beforehand, did you know who was there in the house?
I thought Mrs. Otero and the two kids, the two younger kids, were in the house. I didn't realize Mr. Otero was going to be there.
All right. How did you get into the house?
I came through the back door, cut the phone lines, waited at the back door, had reservations about even going or just walking away, but pretty soon the door opened and I was in.
All right. So the door opened. Was it open for you, or did somebody?
I think one of the kids, I think the junior, or not junior, yes, the younger, Joseph opened the door. He probably let the dog out because the dog was in the house at that time.
All right. When you went into the house, what happened then?
Well, I confronted the family, pulled a pistol, confronted Mr. Otero, and asked him to, that I was there to basically, I was wanted to get the car. I was hungry, food. I was wanted, and asked him to lie down in the living room. And at that time, I realized that wouldn't be a really good idea. So the dog was a real problem. So I asked Mr. Otero if he could get the dog out. So he had one of the kids put it out. I took him back to the bedroom.
Took who back?
The family, the bedroom, the 4 members.
All right. What happened then?
At that time, I tied him up.
While still holding him at gunpoint?
Well, in between tying and yes. Yeah.
All right. After you tied them up, what did they do?
Well, they started complaining about being tied up, and I re-loosened the bonds a couple of times. Tried to make Mr. Otero as comfortable as I could. Apparently had a cracked rib from a car accident, so I had him put a pillow down for his head. Had he put I think he Parker or a coat underneath him. They talked to me about giving the car and whatever money. I guess they didn't have very much money, and there I realized that I didn't have a mask on or anything. They already could ID me, and made a decision to go ahead and put them down, I guess, or strangle them.
All right. What did you do to Joe?
This guy can't fool me, man. It's just, like he's trying to act good, but he's just not.
Otero.
Joseph Otero?
Yeah,
Okay.
Joseph Otero Sr., Mr. Otero, the father.
I put a plastic bag over his head and then some cords and tightened it.
This was in the bedroom.
Yes, sir.
Did he, in fact, suffocate and die as a result of this?
Not right away. No, sir, he didn't.
What happened?
Well, after that, I did Mrs. Otero. I had never strangled anyone before, so I really didn't know how much pressure you had to put on a person or how long it would take. But
Was she also tied up there in the
Yes,
bedroom?
yeah, both their hands and their feet were tied up. She was on the bed.
Where were the children?
Josephine was on the bed and Junior was on the floor this time.
So we're talking first of all about Joseph Otero. So you'd put the bag over his head and tied it, and he did not die right away. Can you tell me what happened in regards to Joseph?
He moved over real quick like, and I think tore a hole in the bag, and I could tell that he was having some problems there. But at that time, the whole family just went, they went panicked on me, so I worked pretty quick.
You worked pretty quick.
Well, I mean, I strangled Mrs. Otero, and then she went out, or passed out. I thought she was dead. She passed out. Then I strangled Josephine. She passed out, or I thought she was dead. And then I went over and put a bag on Junior's head, and then.
See, I mean, it seems like he's having a hard time juggling all these different crimes in his head and thinking back to specific times without trying to blurt out other crimes that he did. Because obviously the police now know what he did, law enforcement, the investigators and stuff, so he can't mess up. And I just think he steps into it a couple times here where he's talking about another crime. And that's just my opinion. I don't know.
If I remember right, Mrs. Otero came back. She came back and.
So let me ask you about Joseph Otero Sr. You
Senior.
indicated he had torn a hole in the bag. What did you do with him then?
I put another bag over it, or either that or I recollect, I think I put either a cloth or a t-shirt or something over his head, and then another bag, and then tighten it down.
Did he subsequently die?
Well, yes. I didn't just stay there and watch him. Then I was moving around the room. But.
All right. So you indicated you strangled Mrs. Otero after you had done this. Is that correct?
Now I went back and strangled her again. That finally killed her at that time.
So this is in regards to count 2. You first of all put the bag over Joseph Otero's head. And he tore a hole in the bag. Then you went ahead. Did you strangle Mrs. Otero then?
Okay.
Or did you go
First of all, Mr. Otero was strangled, or a bag put over his head and strangled. Then I thought he was going down, and I went over and strangled Mrs. Otero. I thought she was down. Then I strangled Josephine. I thought she was down. And then I went over to Junior and put the bag on his head. After that, Mrs. Otero woke back up, and she was pretty upset.
All right, let's get out of this one here, and I want to go to this part. Catherine Bright.
He indicated 1834 Edgemore. The address was actually 803 Edgemore.
All right, but I'd ask him to occur in Sedgwick County. He indicated what had happened. I don't believe the exact address is important. All right, Mr. Rader, we will now turn to count 5. In that count, it is claimed that on or about the 4th day of April, 1974, in Sedgwick County, Kansas, that you unlawfully killed Catherine Bright maliciously, willfully, deliberately, and with premeditation by strangulation and stabbing, inflicting injuries from which she did die on April 4th, 1974. Can you tell me what occurred on that day?
I don't know how to exactly say that. I had many, what I call them projects. There were different people in the town that I followed, watched. Kathleen Bright was one of the next targets, I guess, as I would indicate.
How did you select her?
Just driving by one day, and I saw her go in the house with somebody.
See how he talks out of the side of his mouth here? It's so, disturbing, I think, kind of. I don't know. I got to get a behavioral person to look at that. I don't know if that means anything, but it's just weird.
Else, and I thought that's a possibility. There was many places in the area.
I mean, it could be that he's an attention getter. This guy, he loves to. He's ravishing in this attention here. Look at him. He's just all in his glory right here.
College Hill, they're all over Wichita. But anyway, it just was basically a selection process. Work toward it. If it didn't work, I just move on to something else. But in my kind of person, stalking and scrolling, you go through the trolling stage and then a stalking stage. She was in the stalking stage when this happened.
All right, sir. So you identified Catherine Bright as a potential victim.
Yes, sir.
What did you do here in Sedgwick County then?
Pardon?
What did you do then here in Sedgwick County?
On this particular day,
yes,
I broke into the house and waited for her to come home.
How did you break into the house?
Through the back door on the east side.
All right, and you waited for her to come home. Where
Yes,
did
sir.
you wait?
In the house there, probably close to the bedroom. I walked to the house and kind of figured out where I'd be if they came through.
All right. What happened then?
She and Kevin Bright came in. Wasn't expecting him to be there. And come find out, I guess they were related. That time I approached them and told them I was wanted in California, needed some car. Basically the same thing that I told the Charles. Kind of ease them, make them feel better, and proceeded to. I think I had him tie her up first, and then I tied him up, or vice versa. I don't remember right now.
Now let me ask. You indicated that you had some items to tie these people with. Did you bring these items, both the Oteros and to this location?
The Oteros I did. I'm not really sure on the Brights. There was some
Bullshit, you know. I mean, it's just bullshit right there. You know.
when I am working with the police, there was some controversy on that. Probably more likely I did, but if I had brought my stuff and used my stuff, Kevin would probably be dead today. I'm not bragging on that. It's just a matter of fact. It's the bonds I tied him up with that he broke them. So, all right. And maybe same way with Catherine. It got out of hand.
All right. Now
you're so stuck on yourself, right? Like you are shocked that he got out of those restraints, right? It couldn't have been you, right? You piece of shit. Oh my God, I hate this guy.
You believe you had Kevin tie Catherine up. Tell me what happened.
Okay. I moved, after, I really can't remember, Judge, whether I had her tie him up or she tied him up. But
I mean, did you catch that? Like, he is so upset that somebody broke out of his stuff that he can't even possibly imagine that it was him that caused that. He clearly stated, if it was the stuff that I brought, he wouldn't have. Fuck you.
Anyway, I moved her to another bedroom, and he was already secure there by the bed. Tied his feet to the bedpost, on the bedpost so he couldn't run. Kind of tied her in the other bedroom, and then I came back to strangle him. And at that time, we had a fight.
Were you armed with a handgun at that time also?
Yes, I had a handgun.
What happened when you came back?
I actually had two handguns. When I started strangling, either the parent broke or he broke his bonds, and he jumped up real quick like. I pulled my gun and quickly shot him, hit him in the head. He fell over. I could see the blood, and as far as I was concerned, I thought he was down, and was out, and then went and started to strangle Catherine. And then we started fighting because bonds were very good, and so back and forth we fought.
You and Catherine?
Yeah, we fought. We were fighting because bonds were very good, and so back and forth we fought.
You and Catherine?
Yeah, we fought, and I got the best of her, and I thought she was going down, and then I could hear some movement in the other room, and so back and forth we fought.
You and Catherine?
Yeah, we fought, and was out, and then went and started to strangle Catherine. And then we started fighting because the bonds weren't very good. And so back and forth we fought.
You and Catherine?
Yeah, we fought. And I got the best of her, and I thought she was going down, and then I could hear some movement in the other room. So I went back, and Kevin, no, I thought she was going down, and I went back to the other bedroom where Kevin was at, and I tried to re-strangle him at that time, and he jumped up, and we fought, and he at that time shot me because he got the other pistol that was in my shoulder here. I had my Magnum in my shoulder. So, and
Shoulder holster.
Hmm?
Did you have it in the shoulder holster?
Yes, and I had the Magnum in the shoulder holster. The other one was a 22. And we fought at that point in time, and I thought it was going to go off. I jammed the gun, stuck my finger in there, jammed it. And I think he thought that was the only gun I had, because once I either bit his finger or hit him or something got away, and I used the 22 and shot him one more time. And I thought he was down for good that time.
All right, so you shot him a second time.
Yes, sir.
What happened then?
Went back to finish the job on Catherine, and she was fighting.
See that again? Like, he has to look at his notes. And this is just my opinion. It could be completely wrong, but he's really struggling hard not to say another name, because he's having fantasies at this point with all of these. He's reliving all of these fantasies and just gloating about all of them, period.
Job on Catherine, and she was fighting.
What happened then?
Went back to finish the job on Catherine, and she was fighting. And at that point in time, I've been fighting her. And then I heard I don't know whether I was basically losing control. The strangulation wasn't working on her, and I used a knife on her.
You say you used a knife on her.
Yes.
What did you do with the knife?
I stabbed her. She said either stabbed 2 or 3 times, either here or here. Maybe 2 back here and 1 here, or maybe just 2 times back here.
You were pointing to your lower back and your
Yeah, underneath the ribs.
and your lower abdomen.
Underneath the ribs, up under the ribs.
So after you stabbed her, what happened?
Actually, I think at that point in time, it was a total mess because I didn't have control on it. She was bleeding. She went down. I think I just went back to check on Kevin, or at that basically same time, I heard him escape. It could be one of the two. But all of a sudden, the front door of the house was open and he was gone. I tell you what I thought. I thought the police were coming at that time. I heard the door open. I thought, no, that's it. And I stepped out there, and I could see him running down the street. So I quickly cleaned up everything that I could and left.
All right, now, Mr. Rader, you indicated that at the Oteros you did not have a mask on. Did you have a mask on at the Brights?
No, I didn't.
All right, so what happened then?
I already had the keys to the cars. And I thought I had the right key to the right car. I ran out to their car. I think it was a pickup out there. And I tried it, didn't work. And at that point in time, he was gone running down the street. I thought, yeah, I'm in trouble. So I tried it, didn't work. So I just took off, went east, and then worked back toward the WSU campus.
Can you believe that? Nobody saw this guy running, right? Nobody even noticed it. Nobody, this guy just basically almost committed 2 brutal murders running down the street. Nobody even noticed, right?
All right, so you had parked your car at the Wichita State University campus?
Campus,
How far away was the Brights residence?
Oh, I parked, was that 13th? And they're.
All right, I'm going to get out of here. We're going to do enough on this here because, I mean, I've been on here almost 2 hours here. So let's go to another case. There's more on this to come, so I'll probably be covering this for a while. It's just, you just hope some of these people get some answers. That's all, one can ask for, right? I mean, So we're going to go to this one here. This is the Buster Murdaugh thing, and this guy I think is still in denial here, but so his father was convicted and sent to prison for life, and this is the first time I think he's done an interview with the son that was in the courtroom the whole time, the only surviving son, I think. So it's Buster Murdaugh speaks on father's murder trial, always two sides of the story. So I think he's still in denial, like I said. So let's take a look.
Conversation we're about to have with Fox News correspondent Nate Foy.
So this guy's father,
some of the key moments.
this guy's father was accused and convicted of murdering his wife and his son horrifically. And I'm pretty sure Buster Murdaugh actually testified in court. So he just doesn't seem to think his father's guilty, where everybody in the world does.
After Fox's Martha MacCallum sat down with Buster Murdaugh, and Nate joins us now to talk about that. Nate, good to see you. I think a lot of people are going to be watching this.
I will say it kind of seems a little strange now. It's like 45 minutes to come back with a verdict, but I mean, who am I to? I don't know.
Tonight, this is the really first moment he has spoken out at length since his father's sentencing earlier this year. What can we expect in this conversation?
Well, you nailed it. It's his first and only interview since his father went to prison. And Buster Murdaugh tells our Martha MacCallum that he thinks the jury got it wrong. And the real killer is still out there. He says that he fears for his safety. He thinks about it when he goes to bed at night. A jury convicted his father, Alec, of murdering his brother, Paul, who was just 22 years old, and his mother, Maggie, back in 2021. Buster tells Martha he is confused by some of the evidence presented at trial. And he did have this to say about his father.
When I look up the definition of psychopath, like someone who can completely get away with lying and acting normal and carrying through as if nothing's happening. Does that describe your dad when you look at those definitions of that?
I'm not prepared to sit here and say that it encompasses him as a whole, but certainly I think there are characteristics where you look at the manipulation and the lies and the carrying out of that such, and I think that's a fair assessment.
So the documentary gives an intimate look at the Murdaugh family before and after the murders. There are never before seen home videos where Buster says at points he was closer to his mom. Paul was closer to Alec Murdaugh at points. We also see new footage of Alec immediately after the murders.
That you thought they rushed to judgment because the person who found the bodies was the easiest person to charge. Why would they want to do that to your dad?
So I think it's one of those things where you have to do something. And I think that it was, and that's the option and the route that they decided to go with. My biggest thing that I want people to realize that there are always two sides of the story. Now they can pick which one they want to believe, but I think there's a heck of a lot that still needs to be answered about what happened on June the 7th.
Well, certainly a heck of a lot of new ground was covered in this documentary. You'll even hear from Alec himself in private recordings of phone calls from prison. He reads his private journal in those recordings. He actually broke inmate rules in doing that and has now lost his phone privileges for 30 days because of it. We'll send it back to you.
Yeah, Nate, I remember, all throughout the trial, we heard the conversations, the phone calls between Buster and Alec while Alec was, in custody, in prison, while on trial. And so they kept in touch. They were in communication quite a lot. I'm also kind of curious, and, a lot of people are going to be watching this tonight, the role and the questions that have kind of surrounded Buster Murdaugh's, alleged role, if that is a thing, in the 2015 death of one of his classmates there in high school. Do you think that's going to be brought up as well?
I can tell you that it is brought up. You're talking about the death of his 19-year-old classmate, where Buster was also accused of having intimate relations with that male classmate. He denies that and denies having anything to do with his murder. This documentary certainly, as I said, covers a lot of ground. You really see an intimate look at the family through those home videos. And Martha covers everything that you would want to know from Buster, but not only Buster, other people that knew the family, as well as behind the scenes footage during the trial. She speaks with the legal team that was representing Alec Murdaugh. So it is certainly a must watch. I'm personally one episode in. I got 2 more, but I can personally vouch for it. It's very well done.
All right. As always, Nate Foy, we do appreciate all of your reporting, and definitely.
It's amazing how much people actually really give a shit about what these people say, right? I don't know. Whatever. He's guilty. He's in jail. That's all but all that matters, really, when you think about it. All right, so I want to go to one more video, and this has to do with the Rachel Morin murder. And this was done a day ago on Law and Crime Network. They still haven't caught this piece of crap. So she was unalived on a walking trail in Bel Air, Maryland, and they got a DNA hit on the suspects. They just can't find them. So, mother of 5 gone. It's just awfully sad that this had to happen. But hopefully they could find this guy soon, and because he's a problem. He's probably going to kill again, or at least do something else.
Right now is stopping from doing it again. I believe, our investigators believe, he will do it again.
2 weeks after investigators released this video of the man they believe murdered Rachel Morin, he still hasn't been identified. Now detectives are crisscrossing the country as they search for a killer, as Rachel Morin's family lays her to rest.
The hardest thing is for a mom to have to plan her child's funeral, because it shouldn't be.
Thanks for joining us here on Law and Crime. I'm Anjanette Levy. This week, investigators from the Harford County Sheriff's Office are in Chicago and Los Angeles, following leads as they search for Rachel Morin's killer. Saturday will mark 4 weeks since the mom of 5 went out for a walk on the Ma and Pa Trail in Bel Air, Maryland, and never came home. Her body was found the next day, and a homicide investigation began. DNA from the crime scene matched DNA from a case in Los Angeles from last March. In that case, a man assaulted a young girl during a home invasion. And that's how this video came to light. I spoke with Harford County Sheriff Jeff Gaylor about
He takes a left right there, right?
how this video
He
came
doesn't
to
go
light.
up straight.
I spoke with Harford County Sheriff Jeff Gaylor about the latest in the investigation and why he believes Morin's killer will kill again if he is not caught.
Well, since the release on August 17th, were released the video footage and stills from that video footage. We've had hundreds of tips come in. I think we're somewhere 500 to 600 tips since the investigation began. So we've had tips come in. Investigators continue to follow up on them. We had investigators in Los Angeles last week working with the detectives there, the FBI, and we had detectives in Chicago today. We have them in Chicago today. I'm not free to say what that was about, but we continue to follow leads wherever we need to go. Our investigators are committed. I'm committed. We'll look under any rock until we find this guy and put him behind bars. So our investigators continue to work all the leads to come in, but we're still asking for the public support to share that video, to check out the picture. Somebody out there will recognize him and knows who he is. And I regret to say, we have no idea where he is. I mean, he could be here in our community. He could have gone back to Los Angeles, or he could be at any other city or community in our country or in the world. I'm appreciative of the coverage that we're receiving because it's getting seen by so many more people. And we just needed to get in front of the right person who says, I know who that is, and then call us and tell us so that we
I
can.
think that's the terrifying thing about this. You all say the man in the video murdered Rachel Morin and probably did more than that, just from my thinking of what could have happened and what he's accused of doing in Los Angeles. So what is your concern here, other than the fact that, in my mind, he seems to have escalated his level of violence, going from a home invasion, assaulting a child, to now you're saying accused of murdering a woman on a running trail, somebody he didn't even know. So
we assume he does not know. We don't know for sure that they haven't crossed paths somewhere, that this was not targeted. It could have been targeted. It could be completely random. From everyone we've interviewed around Rachel, no one reports as knowing him as an acquaintance or anything. So that certainly leads us more in the direction that it was just a crime of opportunity, that it was random. And yeah, my concern is that, and I've said the same thing, he seems to have escalated. He's gone from a home invasion and assault against a juvenile female to a homicide here in our county. And there's nothing right now to stop him from doing it again. I believe, our investigators believe, he will do it again. And I've said I wake up in the morning concerned that somewhere between Los Angeles and Maryland, there may be another homicide out there that just hasn't had the DNA hit yet that will eventually tie back to him. So until we get him into custody, there's no community that is safe that he could find himself waking up in and deciding to do something horrific like he did in this case.
the escalation in violence, though, is terrifying. And if he indeed did not know her, if this was indeed a crime of opportunity and a random attack, there's nothing to stop him from doing this the next time the urge hits him or whatever.
Absolutely. As long as he's a free man and not behind bars where he needs to be, there is nothing that prevents him today, tomorrow, from carrying out another attack. He could be out there planning it. I pray that's not the case, but we won't know that until we have him secured in a jail where he needs to be forever, in my opinion.
Rachel Morin's case is the only other case where DNA has matched the LA case. Maryland has some restrictions on when investigators can use genetic genealogy in cases. I asked Sheriff Gaylor if his detectives have considered going that route, since the FBI does that work and is assisting with the investigation.
Well, Maryland has a lot of restrictions and not the most public safety, police-oriented, it's more pro-criminal, the legislature here. That's a whole discussion for another day. But I will say those avenues are available to us, working with our partners, and I haven't gone into, we haven't.
Okay, so she was originally from Dover, New Hampshire. She was one of 5 siblings, so she's got a big family. So I just got that confirmed.
Don't release any of the investigative efforts that are moving forward, other than to say we're following up. So I'm familiar with that, and every investigative effort that we possibly can do is being done.
Beloved daughter and mother and friend.
Rachel Morin's family and friends gathered for her funeral last weekend. Her mother, Patty, speaking of the pain of losing her daughter.
I have been trying for weeks to think about memories of Rachel that I can share, because I knew this time was coming. And I have to be honest, my heart and my mind won't let me go there because it's too painful.
Patty Morin talked about the outpouring of support her family has received following Rachel's murder, including a walk where 2,000 people came out to remember her at the Ma and Pa Trail.
We had hundreds of people come up to me.
That's the best place to look for the suspect, maybe. I bet you they had eyes all over that place.
Me and to the other family members and hug them and say, I knew Rachel, or my daughter knew Rachel, or I didn't know Rachel, but I knew who she was, and she always said hi and she always smiled. And we think those are like little ordinary things, but they actually mean something to people. And to have 2,000 people come out because somehow Rachel and her ordinary life affected them. I think
But I think this guy here is long gone. I mean, that's just my personal opinion. He could still be there, but I think he's a goner. Especially since they blabbed that they have his DNA. He's a goner.
That's really amazing.
Our investigators and our victim service advocates are in contact with the family. They had a memorial service for Rachel over the weekend. You know, you want to say they're doing well. You can't put the word well with, you know, having lost this young woman, you know, the mother of 5.
This guy's an awesome guy right here. I really have a lot of respect for him.
The daughter to a mom and dad. She has a brother and a sister who lost a sibling. So there's, you know, I say well with the big asterisk next to it that there is no doing well, and the only thing that we can offer at this point in time is to find this guy and assure them that someone else isn't going to, you know, suffer the same fate that Rachel suffered, and bring this guy to justice for them.
Harford County has set up a special email tip address.
So if you have any information about this case, this is the phone number 410-836-7788 and email at rmtips@harfordsheriff.org. I always want to say Hartford because of Hartford, Connecticut, but it's harfordsheriff.org. No T in there.
Anyone with information about Rachel Morin's murder or the man in the
This guy probably looks like, I don't know, 1% of the entire population of males, out there. So it's going to be tough to find him because there's no real, other than his hairstyle, but I'm pretty sure he's changed that.
The video can email rmtips@harfordsheriff.org. You can also call 410.
I'm pretty sure that's a cell phone right there. So if they can get some ping data off of that stuff there, that might be
836-7788. For Law and Crime, I'm Anjanette Levy.
All right. So that's it for me. I've been on here over 2 hours. I hope everybody has a good night. I may come back on later. I probably will not. Sunday, I'm going to try to come on here and do on my other channel, DGR Dave 2 for the picks for the Super Bowl and for just overall football stuff. So if you want to go there, go ahead. If anybody's watching on a replay, thank you. Whoever watched, thank you for coming in. Thank you to Honeybee. Honeybee's awesome. And if you're watching on the replay, thank you. If you could hit the like, that'd be great. If you could subscribe, that'd be great. If you don't, that's fine too. So I'll play my outro. Actually, I'll do this first. All right. And I'll play my outro, and then we'll get out of here, right? Everybody have a good rest of the weekend. Stay safe.